Assalamu alaikum, students. I will talk on the next topic, which is aspects of nonverbal communication today. And we had talked about nonverbal communication in the class 2 briefly, and today we would talk in detail on this topic. Firstly, we would start with the types of nonverbal messages, and there are the four types which are stated over here. Firstly, there is the personal nonverbal communication, which is unique to each individual. Every individual has got his own particular style and way of responding to different situations, even if he's feeling angry or he's tense or he's happy or he's excited. He would respond to it in his own manner, which would be specific to him only, him or her only. And whenever uh, like if the person, sometimes you may see that the people who when a person gets angry, he has got his own individual nonverbal style to respond to that. And it could be sometimes he may be quiet. Some people, when they are angry, they sit quiet. Sometimes they would they would start shouting. Sometimes they would close the door with a thunder. And similarly, when the people get tense, they have got their own individual styles to respond to that tense situation or the tense feeling. So whenever you are communicating to different individuals, you need to understand that every person has got his own unique way of behaving in certain manners and responding to different certain situations. So get to know these whenever you're talking to certain individuals, understand these, and then communicate accordingly. Number two, there is cultural nonverbal communication, which is common to a group of people. So even if you see that cultural that's a very kind of a area where a lot of researches has taken place, and these researches deal with the cultural communication and cross cultural communication and the barriers that occur in cross cultural communication. But here, that is non-verbal communication. Whenever you are part of one culture, most of the time this cultural non-verbal communication is learned unconsciously. When you are a part of one culture, you know how to behave in certain situations, and what kind of behaviors are acceptable in your culture and what are unacceptable. So these are unconsciously learned. These are kinds of the values that the children learn from the very beginning. So when they grow up, they get to know. And when they grow up, so you may see that these are being refined. So when you are a part of one culture, you may learn language, well and good. But for non-verbal communication, and to see that what kind of non-verbal channels and the ways of communication are acceptable in a certain culture, you need to be there and you need to observe. And after observation, you would get to know the acceptable non-verbal communication in different cultures. And most appropriately, if you take the example of greetings, so the way we greet to each other, these are unique to each culture. And particularly if we see in our own culture, we would see that how do we greet each other on different festivals, on different occasions, on different religious events or cultural events. So we know that our children know that from the very beginning. Similarly, in when the elders come, how the elders greet the youngers, and how the youngers greet the elders, and how do the youngers behave when the elders are around. So these are all different non-verbal manners, non-verbal ways through which we communicate, and we try to show that we are the insiders and we are not the outsiders. And if you don't know how to behave non-verbally in a particular culture, then you would be considered an outsider. So definitely, we would say that this cultural nonverbal communication, that also differs, and you need to understand whenever you are communicating to the people who belong to different cultures, you need to understand this fact that they have got their own particular nonverbal ways to behave. You need to understand that, and you need to communicate accordingly. And number three, there is the universal nonverbal communication, which is common to all mankind, humans. They respond to different situations, even that's the happiness or that's the sadness or that's the anger. They respond to that. Like they respond to happiness with the happy face, smile, and they respond to sadness with sadness, or maybe grief with tears. So these are common to all mankind. The next one is unrelated nonverbal communication. Here we may take the unrelated is why do we say it unrelated? Because that does not have any impact on the meaning of the message. The other three have an impact on the meaning of the message, but here it does not have. Like sneeze, cough, you are communicating to the individuals and you sneeze or you cough, so that's not. Okay, next are the components of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication that modifies, that changes, and that also complements a verbal communication. And what I would say that nonverbal communication is kind of components of nonverbal communication. They are kind of tools which are given to human beings in order to enhance the impact of their messages. And if they use these tools effectively, so definitely that's going to have a very positive impact, or that's going to enhance the impact of their message. But if that does not happen, like if the verbal and the non-verbal don't match to each other and there is contradiction between both verbals and non-verbals, then what will happen, that this is not there will be contradiction, and people tend to believe in non-verbal messages more than the verbal part, because non-verbal communication is most of the time or all the time that's less conscious, that's more honest, and that's more spontaneous. That's why people tend to believe more on the non-verbal than the verbal part. That actually is going to show you the importance of the non-verbal communication. We would start with the components. Firstly, there is the appearance and surroundings. So your appearance and the appearance of your surroundings, that always leave a very, they are the very strong indicators, and they always leave a very good, very positive or not good impression upon onlooker or upon your interlocutor. uh, Appearance means the surroundings means whatever is around you. You whenever there is kind of the meeting taking place between individuals, surroundings leave an impact. Surroundings कितनी neat है, कितनी tidy है, चीज़ें कितनी अपनी जगहों पे हैं. You For example, if you are expecting some guest to come, and what kind of a guest that is, either that guest is very kind of a welcoming guest or not a welcoming guest. So this would depend that how much you are going to put an effort on working at your surroundings. अगर तो बड़ा welcome guest है, तो definitely you would try to create a very neat and tidy kind of a look of your surroundings, and everything must be on place, and then you would be working at your own appearance too. अच्छा, तुम्हारी अपनी appearance means like the kind of a dress that you wear and kind of accessories, or that you are wearing and all that. They also are very much important, because how you dress up, that makes an important statement, not only about what you think of yourself, but also how you see and how you regard the person you are talking to. So dressing also reflects your personality, but most of the time that reflects what do you think about the next person. So you would be working at your appearance, and then you would be working at the things around you, if that's kind of a very welcome guest. Similarly, this happens in organizations. Most of the time I've seen that in private organizations, the people actually most of the time they work so much on surroundings and upon the appearance of the surroundings, and they always leave a very great impact upon the onlooker. So whenever the communication is taking place in any context, first of all try to work at your appearance and very neat and tidy appearance, and then try to work at your surroundings, very neat and tidy surroundings, because these are the very strong non-verbal indicators, and they always place your communication in a context. Then moving towards the next very important component, that's the body language. And in body language, I would start with the very first thing, which is posture. What is a posture? Posture is the position and movement of the body. Whether while you are sitting or while you are standing. You may see different postures over here while the people are sitting or while the people are standing, and the way they are being standing. What I would say in both of these pictures, these are not very good postures that you must adopt in any formal communication. These are not the ones. And then postures, sometimes there are the closed body postures and there are the open body postures. Here in these examples, you may see the open body posture and the closed. So closed is the one which you must not try to adopt. Rather, you try to adopt most of the time the open body posture, because that's always going to create a very good impression about you, and that always enhance the impact of your messages, that always enhance what you are saying. So always come up with a very positive posture, which is the open posture. And like if I give you the example of you going to your boss office, and your boss is sitting on the chair, and ideally he's sitting on the chair and he's having he's lying back at the chair, and he's having both of his hands at the back of his head, and the like this is the posture that's given. So I was discussing with you a posture of a boss. So when you enter into the room, you said, "May I come in, sir?" And the boss was sitting in that posture, like I mentioned already, that he was lying at the back of his chair with both of his hands at the back of his head and his legs are folded. He would say, "Yes, you enter," and you had a very important matter to discuss. Now, what would happen that boss does not change his posture? He said yes, but he had not changed his posture. Would you discuss that important matter to him? दूसरी situation. You go, your boss is sitting in the same position that I described earlier. Now, what happens when he says yes and you enter into the room? Boss would, he would move forward. He would place both of his arms on the table and he would look intently at you. Would you discuss the important matter? So this is the posture of the individual, which is either going to encourage the next person to speak up or discourage the next person. Postures are of different kinds. Sometimes they are the friendly postures, unfriendly postures, stiff, flexible, inflexible, compromising. And the ideal posture is upright posture, that always wins the approval of the next person, the relaxed posture. And don't try to adopt the awkward postures, because they indicate, they give a very bad signal about you, and they confuse, sometimes they confuse your interlocutor, or sometimes they snub your interlocutor, and that's not going to leave a very positive impression. Always try to come up with a good posture, and which is upright and relaxed and encouraging and flexible. Moving towards the next topic, which is gestures and movements. What are gestures? Gestures are the movements of hands, arms, fingers, and head. Similar, like postures, the gestures are also good gestures and bad gestures, awkward gestures. And the gestures also indicate your nervousness, your confidence. They express comfort, discomfort, whether you are feeling anxiety, you are anxious, or you are feeling confident. So always try to come up with a good gesture that would complement whatever you are saying. If you would come up with the awkward gestures like fidgeting your hands, drumming on the table, drumming your foot, tapping your foot, crossing and uncrossing your legs, and crossing and working and playing with the pen, so that would indicate your anxiousness and your anxiety, and that won't leave a good impression of yours upon the next person. Here I also have some examples of the good gestures. Like here you may see the gestures used by different people, and you may see that sometimes these are the awkward gestures and they indicate next person's confusion or unhappiness or anxiety. Sometimes they would indicate the next person's anger, and here you may see the facial expressions also complement these, and other body aspects of other body language also complement these. And here you may see the other gestures that here the people are using, which are the open palm gesture. That's very much good. Whenever you're talking to the people, use an open palm gesture instead of using the index finger, because the index finger most of the time that conveys that you're trying to dominate the next person. So don't use the index finger, rather all the time try to use an open palm whenever you are talking to the people, and you see you have to make use of the gesture. So that's a very positive gesture. That's the use of the open palm while talking to the people. And next, smell and touch. Smell, the kind of perfumes, colognes that you use whenever you are going into some formal setting. You are going for an interview and you are wearing a very strong kind of cologne or perfume, and stringent kind of, that's not going to leave a good impression. And whenever you go into certain organizations, the kinds of air fresheners or the phenyl ki khushboo wale jo hote hain, certain or use of that, so you would see these are going to create an impression about that organization. Touch, the study of the touching behavior is called haptics. Haptics, HAPTICS. Here I have one slide on that. So haptics is the study of the touching behavior. When you are in any formal interaction, try using good kind of a touching behavior to support, to console, and to encourage your colleagues, your subordinates, because that would leave a very good impression about yours. So you may use this touching behavior to either encourage the next person or to calm the next person Okay, you are in a meeting and the boss has said some harsh words to your colleague. You are sitting nearby him and you wanted to console him. So, what will you say? Do simply placing your hand upon his hand would give him a support, would console him, and that would leave a very positive image of you as a professional. So, haptics is a great study, and if you come up with good formal means of consoling and supporting the people through that, so that would create a very positive impression of yours. Next is face and eyes. Face, a very important indicator of one's mind, of any individual. There are different kinds of facial expressions that people wear in different situations, but here I'm more concerned with the very formal communication or organizational communication, where you have to either you are there as a listener or as a speaker. What kind of a facial expression you must wear? First of all, there are different kinds of facial expressions and they indicate different things. Like if you're wearing a slight smile, so that would indicate your keenness, your amusement, your interest in the interaction. If there is frown, that would indicate your displeasure, your anxiety, anger. And if you are wearing a vacant distant expression, like I would say no expression on your face, that would indicate your boredom, your frustration. So this is good to wear a good facial expression, which would convey your attentiveness and your keenness as a speaker and as a listener. If you want the interaction to be going on, and if you want the interaction to be smooth and effective, no matter whatever you are going on, everybody has got issues. No matter you had a kind of a bad interaction or some mishap only a little ago, that must not be going to affect you. Whenever you are going into any formal communication a setting, you have to wear a good facial expression that would convey your keenness and your energy and your interest, and that you're not at all going to afford frown or the vacant distant expression, because that would be unprofessional, absolutely. Next is the use of eyes, the eye contact. Having an eye contact or not having an eye contact, they have consequences. In first case, good. In the second case, not good. Like if you are maintaining keeping an eye contact with the people, it would indicate your interest, firstly your interest, your confidence, and that you, whatever you are saying, you are sure of that and you are coming up with a very authentic thing. But if you are unable to make an eye contact with the people, it would first of all indicate your disinterest in the interaction. And definitely, if the speaker is disinterested, the listener won't be interested in that interaction, and it would be failure. It would be a failed communication. And if you are unable to make an eye contact, that would also indicate your lack of confidence. And it would also indicate whatever you are saying, you are not sure of that. And your whatever you are saying, that's not authentic and don't believe in what the speaker is saying. So it has great consequences. Always try to practice making a good eye contact with the people in any interaction, because that's going to make you a good communicator, a successful communicator, or in other on the other way around, the unsuccessful communicator, if you are unable to come up with a good eye contact with the people. Next is voice and sounds. Okay, so we were doing voice and sounds. The study of voice and sounds is called paralanguage, and that's associated with the use of language and not with the word systems. Paralanguage involves the way of uttering things, uttering language, uttering the words, saying the words, and the way the words are being uttered and being articulated and being said, they are more important than words themselves, because they are the non-verbal components of a voice, and people tend to believe more in the non-verbals than in the verbals. And these non-verbal indicators of a voice, they include volume, rate, tone, pitch of voice, and many more. We would take them up inshallah in the coming lectures in detail and in much more detail. So if sometimes a volume, there are different kinds of volumes, like the loud volume or the slow volume. First of all, you need to keep in mind that that must be according to the number of participants and according to the situation. And even whenever it's not according to that, definitely that's not going to leave a very good impact. So most of the time we are going to see the generic characteristics of one kind of a voice, and one attribute of a voice and not another. Like if there is a loud voice, most of the time loud means that the more louder than it's expected, so it would indicate anger and urgency. If you are speaking in much a fast rate, that would indicate that either you are nervous or you are in a haste. If you are speaking in a very flat tone, it would indicate that you are very much disappointed. If you're speaking in a very much slower rate, so that would indicate that slower rate in a very low volume, so that would indicate that you are being tired, or you are disinterested. So every time the way you utter the things and say the things, that would indicate or that would create an impression about you as a speaker, that whether you are being confident or you are interested or you are interested in saying the things or not. And people tend to believe more in these things and not in the words. We would take them up in much more detail in the coming lectures. So for today only, I would discuss only these things, only this much. Next is silence, time and space. So silence in surroundings and silence in responses, they both are very much important, because if there is a silence in your responses, not the silence that is expected, like even if somebody pose some question and you are just going to start off at the same moment, so that would not create a very positive impression about you, because a sensible speaker, he always takes some time and then he would speak, so that's the expected silence. But if the silence is unexpected, you would go to your teacher or to your HOD and you would put in a request, and he or she would take a time, and he would take a longer stretch of time, so you would develop this feeling that this is no. Now coming to the silence and surroundings, that also are very important indicators if that's expected or that's not expected. If somebody would come to the university in the first half of the day and there is silence around, uh, because the students are taking their classes, definitely, so that silence is expected and that silence is appreciated. But if that's the break time or that's the off time and there is the silence around, so that's unexpected, and that's going to create a kind of a feeling of something which is not expected, and some unpleasant circumstances. So you must be trying to see and you must be trying to fulfill the expectations of the people, expectations of the settings, keeping in the time that are according to the time and the place and the participants. Next is the use of time. The study of the use of time is called chronamics. CHRONEMICS. Now, the study of time is also very much important and a great indicator. So your observance of time is a great indicator of whether you are a reliable individual or unreliable individual. No matter whatever you say with your tongue or through your other actions, that how much efficient you are, your boss always know that how do you observe time, when do you come to your office, when do you come to your meetings. Most of the time, sometimes in unexpectedly something, some mishap may happen, something may happen and you may be late sometimes. But what is your regular routine? How do you meet deadlines? When do you come? How much necessary preparation do you make and do you do? All these create a impression about you as a professional, and that always is most of the time that is true. So the study of time is called chronamics, and in that that's the nonverbal indicator of one's of any individual, and this indicators show and tell about the other person, that how the observance of time could create a very positive or very negative impression about you. Next is space. The study of space is called proximity. Proximity means proximity. Okay, here I have one slide on proximity. Proximity means nearness in place, or the distance between the individuals whenever they communicate to each other in any formal setting, in any formal communication. This depends upon different factors, like this depends upon gender, status, roles, and culture. So any professional, any individual who's working in some institution or in some organization, or who's a part of any formal interaction, he need to know and he need to understand all these factors whenever he's communicating to the other individual, because the space between the communicators, that indicate their status and their position. He must see that he must see the gender, the status and the role and the culture in which that communication is taking place, and then he need to behave accordingly if he wants to establish himself as a good professional. Because the use of proximity, that's also a very great non-verbal indicator of one's as a good professional or as not a good professional. Here in these examples, you may see that the formal interactions are taking place and how the people are keeping distance among themselves. The last topic, which I have not sorry I have not mentioned over here, is the artifacts, the use of the artifacts. Artefacts. Artifacts are objects which are used to convey nonverbal messages about self concept, image, mood, feeling, and style of the individuals. Artifacts means like what kind of the things that you are wearing, the accessories that you are wearing, like what kind of hairstyle have you made, what kind of shoes you are wearing, the watch, the specs, the glasses, the hairpins, the bands, and the bag you are carrying, and the like student's ID card that he's wearing, and what kind of bag he's carrying. So they indicate, they tell about their identity, they tell about their feelings, they tell how do they regard the situation and the people in which they are communicating. So in the use of the artifacts, the people also try to be very much careful and try to come up with the artifacts that match with the event and that match with the situation. If they want to convey a positive impression about themselves as a professional or as an individual, they must be according to the situation and according to the event in which they are taking place, in which they are being a part of. Okay, so students, that's all for today. I just want you to go through the books. These are not only mainly these books, but some other. You may consult some other communication skills books and get hand at the some detailed notes on all the on the discussed topics. So if you would be coming up, if you would be having any queries, I would see them inshallah in the query session. Thank you.